Hello there. Let's wait a minute or two for all of you to join. In the meanwhile, could you please let me know whether you can hear me and see the screen, if everything is okay? Yeah, you can just write in the chat that everything works fine. So I'd be grateful for such information. Okay, so let's wait a minute or two. Okay, thank you for confirmation that everything works fine. Great, great. Thank you, guys. I hope the weather is lovely at your place. Here in Poland, it's quite sunny and quite warm, so a nice day. Okay, guys, I think we can begin. My name is Sylvia. I'm a product manager at XPlus. And today we are going to talk about how to improve processes in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance Supply Chain Management fast, easily, and at low cost. This is second part of our session of lives. Last week we were talking about some best practices, some challenges in process optimization, and today we'll be talking about improving processes in a in a fast, easy, and low and cheap way. We could say it like this. Okay, so agenda for today. But maybe before that, if you missed the last session, of course it was recorded. You can still view it. So if you miss it, go ahead and you can watch it later. The same will go for this session. It will also be recorded, so no worries here if anything happened and disconnected you. Okay, and the agenda for today. The agenda for today is like this. First, we are going to talk about what are the typical challenges connected with process improvements. Then we will move on to an issue of how to implement process improvements fast and easily. And I will give you some real life examples because those are what really matters, right? How the theory met with the practice. Then there will be a brief showcase of our Executive Explorer, of our tool, which will find its use related to those topics. And then there will be time for some Q&A for questions. And I'd like to ask you, as always, if you have any questions, if any question comes to your mind, please feel free to write this question in the chat. I will answer it during the last part, but you can write those at any time. And I will, of course, go back to them so nothing will be missed. Okay, so I think with no further ado, we can start. So let's first talk about the value of process improvements. First of all, the greatest value here, of course, is to save money, to generate saving by eliminating wastes. You may be familiar with this term, but eliminate the waste of time, of resources, of over processing, of defects, etc. And saving money by saving time, of course, is not so obvious, right? Because if a user is doing a process faster, then of course the time saved will be spent on something else. But still, more can be done like this, right? Also, when it comes to defects, to bugs, and problems that some ineffective processes may generate, not all of those processes are easily fixable. Some mistakes may cost company a lot. Some may be not as foolproof as they should be. So it really needs to be addressed because the savings process improvements may generate, they may come not only in thousands of dollars, but also in millions in large companies, and may be really crucial to the future of organization. Additionally, of course, process improvements, especially those connected with user experience, have a great impact on employee satisfaction. And why is it important? Because from my experience, and with my colleagues, it often happens that when a user first uses Dynamics 365, they are not really happy with it, right? I think you've encountered similar cases. They very often complain that the process, that the tool is not intuitive enough, that it is complicated, that this is, requires much more work that they were used to do before. And sometimes if you do not manage this reaction, these negative feelings towards the tool, you may lose resources, which is the worst case scenario. They may, simply be against the tool later on principle because they were left alone, nobody helped them, and they will simply dislike it. And to manage it, it's good to look for process improvements which are connected with this experience. They do not have to be expensive. They do not have to be complex. I will tell you more about it later. We have a real case scenario here related to that. But it is really, really important to take into consideration also the user experience of those who actually have to use the system. Okay, so now let's move on and talk about typical challenges of process improvements. So first of all, the greatest challenge is obtaining real life and up-to-date data for the analysis, right? Because before we improve any processes, we first need to analyze them. We need to know what they look like, what they actually look like, and to find those, those things which are ineffective. And why I believe that obtaining real life data is um, very important but challenging. First of all, you may have documentation. Of course, this is not the case in every company, and if you do not have any documentation, worst case scenario. But you may have documentation, but it is often not updated. It is often not detailed enough. And also happens that documentation is one thing, but what the users do in the system is a completely different story. Especially if one process is used by multiple users, it may turn out that each of those users have a different approach to the process, do it differently, some more effective, some less effective, some in a way which is, you could say, more dangerous, more prone to generate some problems, and other less, right? So it's very important to actually see what really the process looks like in the system. Another challenge is, of course, choosing the most effective and efficient improvement. Especially now that Microsoft introduced the one version policy, it is important that those improvements we do not affect negatively this policy, that that this improvement does not really generate a lot of work for us, because every time the new version would come, that there will be a need for tests. It may result in some fixes needed to be done. So it's important and very difficult to find such improvements which affect the system as little as possible. They improve the work, but do not really have negative impact here. It's doable, guys. It's really doable. I will tell you some examples later. Also, of course, it's very important to make correct assessment when calculating the cost and gain of planned improvements. I often encountered such cases when a whole company decided on a great project of improving every process in one tool or another, in one system or another, and everybody was involved. It was a really huge project, and well, most often than not, it failed. Because first of all, was too much was being decided to be done, but it was difficult to make correct assessments. Because too much was being decided to be done at the moment, right? So it is really challenging when we think about improvements to decide how much are we going to spend on this improvement, and when this investment is going to return, because long-term investments here are not good at all. You cannot, you shouldn't, well, you can, but you shouldn't really make an improvement which will return to you in 3, 5 or more years, because it is really very, very likely that the process will change in 2 or 3 years. So it will need another change. So the cost will not really bring us any value. So it's very challenging to make the correct assessments. And how to face this challenge? Well, simply do not make too big projects, make them smaller, and this will help you to manage it better. Okay, so now when we've talked about challenges, now let's talk about how to improve the processes fast and easily, right? So first of all, which I've already briefly mentioned before, small steps approach, it's way better than revolutionary improvement projects. It's really better to take one process, look at it, take some steps which are the most ineffective, try to fix them, to improve them, and then after you've done it, you can move on to another. If you're familiar with Kaizens, this is a really nice approach. It says that by really small improvements, but lots of small improvements, you can bring a great value to the organization. So small improvements bring better value because they are better, easier at managing. They are not so expensive. They are rather inexpensive, those small ones. They do not always need to involve any development, right? You can just improve some process by educating users, by making some modifications in the system, by creating some predefined, let's say, dashboards, or making some filters predefined. So there are lots of ways that you can make improvements which will be felt, which will be experienced by the users and will bring value, but they will be easier at being managed by the organization. Additionally, it is very important also to choose improvements that are already there in the system or affect the system in a minimal way. This brings us back to the one version policy. Yeah, this is really important here. Sometimes our processes, we bring our processes from a different system to this one, to Dynamics, and we try to recreate them. And this is not always the best approach. Dynamics also has its own you could say predefined versions of processes which we can use. We can adjust our process to meet that. We won't lose much. We can gain a lot actually, and there will be no ill effect on the one version policy. Also, well, if we were to decide on whether we really actually need some development being done and to greatly affect the system, we need here to consider that there will be more costs involved in the future, because it's not only the cost of the development now of this additional feature, of this improvement, of this change in the system, but also with each update of the new version, you will need, there may be a need, and is probable to make some adjustments. And what is actually a good approach when we talk about process improvements is to enhance process analytics and improving processes with machine learning, with process mining, and with task mining. This is really, really handy. It gives you a lot of advantages which you wouldn't be able to obtain in a different way. It makes the whole process of finding improvements, implementing them, and then checking the results, it makes it cheaper, it makes it faster, it makes it more precise because you have access to real data. And when I say process mining, to task mining, machine learning, what I'm talking about is actually in relation to the tool we've prepared, Executive Explorer. I hope you've already hear about it, but if not, it is a tool which records user activity in the system, all user activity, everything they do. And then it groups those activities into processes and presents them in a tool. Of course, I will show you the tool later, but using such tools which enhance process analytics are really, really a great thing and really bring a great value to organization. So now let me tell you about real life examples of those fast and easy process improvements, which I promised you at the beginning. So one of the cases we've had, our customer, was that the users who very recently were introduced to Dynamics, they were getting lost in the system. They were, having a hard time finding proper places, proper options, proper what they were looking for actually, right? And actually, thanks to introduction on predefined dashboards and favorites option, those are options that are already there, functionalities that are already there in Dynamics. No development needed here. So thanks to introducing it, the company saved 215 days, work days annually, thanks to such a small thing. Yes, so really it can be done. Another example, entering purchase contracts. So by actually introducing a few improvements, first was one being introduced, then we checked what was the result, then another, and the same process we've checked the results, and one more, just to make the process more and more effective. So first of all, we've decided that it would help to hide the fields that are not needed, because the users had problem with that they did not know what to do with all those fields. Then we unified the form, and then we implemented the OCR, because the contracts were being entered manually by the workers from paper to the system. So thanks to those improvements, 525 work days were saved annually. So yeah, also quite a nice number. And next example about redundant and repetitive activities. It turned out that there were users who were, in processes, they were doing a repetitive work. So, for example, while entering a prognosis, the whole process, the full execution of the process took 1 hour and a half. It consisted of 600 steps, and 40% of these steps were involved repetitive actions. So writing the same values over and over again into the fields. So by introducing mini macros and bulk field updates, really small, not really expensive improvements, the company saved 350 work days. This is how many days were saved. So really, really quite a nice number, don't you agree? And yeah, so if you are already interested if I've told you, I'm just now in the chat, I'm putting in the chat link to you can schedule a quick call. You can talk, we can show you the tool, we can discuss if you have any doubts, any questions. If you are interested, then of course you can schedule a call. Link will be visible all the time in the chat. Okay, now let's move on to showcase. Let me show you now our Executive Explorer. I'm not going to show the whole tool, because I wanted to show you here how it is applied to what I've mentioned in this presentation today. But let me briefly tell you what are we seeing now. Here we are seeing how a process of posting free text invoices, how it looks like in the system. Here we've got some KPIs, the number of executions, the number of users, the potential for automation, the cost of the process. Of course, this is on test environment, so the numbers are not great here, but just for this demonstration purposes, I think it's enough. Now I'm going to show you the process graph. It works like this. Bold lines show us, yet of course we follow the arrows, right, from start to end. Bold lines show us how most often the process is being executed, and those thinner lines, like here on here, show you the less frequently used variants. This is very it may be used for comparing different approaches to processes. Here I'm clicking on different variants to see the differences. And thanks to that, you can check which approach, which variant is the most, effective one. And you may decide that you want all users to be educated in it and use it in the future. Now I would like to show you execution of this process, one of the executions. And what is actually an issue here? What we see in this execution is the steps which is involved. And as you can see, there are a lot of steps which are highlighted in red. It means that they are for some reasons take very long time. For example, here, click customer account, it took over a minute. Here we have 50 seconds, another over a minute, almost 2 minutes. So really, it takes very, very long. So let's maybe take a look at the details here. I'm now clicking on this. Oh, sorry. I got locked out. Oh my. I'm sure I will be able to go back to it now. Oh, yeah. So, account. Yeah. Okay. So I've clicked now on the details on business context, and what we see here that on in this field not much is being done. So for some reason it takes this long without really involving too much of the system, right? Because if we took a system time, client time, they take around a second. So it may be that the user is doing something in this step outside the system. Maybe they are, writing something from a different source, but it is worth investigating why it takes so long. Additionally, what we see here is not a long performance of the process, but I'll show you that in this process, which involves 22 steps, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times the users types the same value, the same field. Additionally, there also multiple times they click on the customer account. So there are a lot of repetitive steps, which maybe could be in some way optimized, for example, by mini macros or bulk updates. Another similar case we've got here. This is a bit longer process. It involves 54 steps. And in this one, very often, let me maybe use filter to show you how many often the user use here filter. Can you see it? Quite a lot, right? So maybe there are some predefined filters needed here that will make the user more happy and they will not need to do it. Maybe it's something in the system that clears the filter every time. So it's also worth taking a look and see in more detail why it happens and how to address it in a way that would generate much work but will bring the expected results. Okay, I think we can now move back to the presentation. I think it's now time for the Q&A part of the session. So guys, if you have any questions, please, now is the time to write them in the comments. You can ask anytime. Please also, if you are interested in in this tool, then we can schedule a call. The link is in the chat. You can sign up. We can talk some more, show you some more features that this tool offers. Because of course, for this live purposes, I've only shown you a really small bit of it, just to prepare you the great value. Also, to answer the most commonly asked questions about whether the users feel that they're being recorded, whether this impacts their work. No, it doesn't. The users do not feel a thing. We've actually measured the impact on the system performance of this tool, and it is only 4%. So it's really the users are really not able to feel a thing. So no worries here. Additionally, where are the data stored? This is also a question that we have a lot. The data is stored in a database which belongs to the customer, to our customer. We do not host it for the customer. We do not have access to it. The data is yours. You may use it as you wish. Of course, it is used for the Executive Explorer purposes, but you may also connect your own, for example, reporting tools like Power BI, and you can also use this data for reporting purposes, which would you wish to use. Okay, I am not seeing any questions. Let me just scroll here to see if there are anything, but no, there is anything. So maybe if later on anything came to your mind of those of you who watch us not live but just watch the recording, if you have any questions, of course schedule the call. The link is in the chat. We can talk. We are happy always to answer your questions. And so I think we can finish right now. Thank you very much for participating in this session. Actually, some of you, see you next week. Next week we're also holding a session with a different topic. So yeah, have a lovely day, and see you. Bye bye.